Look what we've seen all around the country, and all of the U.S. players who over. As we get underway here, we think of what Heather has done on the women's side to create all of those fans. Like, what has that been like, seeing the growth of this sport in this country?
I moved here right before the 1994 World Cup, which was meant to turn football like a pogo stick or a yo-yo into an overnight sensation, sweeping the nation. And it didn't. Instead, the growth has been slow and steady.
It did give us Alexi Lawless.
And despite that, the growth has been slow and steady. And I want to say, by the women in huge part, you know, here you go.
Brought it tonight.
Well,
FIFA, what you doing? Go on.
Roger, so your boyhood club, right? And
I think we should be assuming it's
Blazers is to kind of bring a lot of the joy right over to this country, and it just has grown so much. I mean, look at this stadium, look what we've seen all around the country, and all of the U.S. players who over. As we get underway here, we think of what Heather has done on the women's side to create all of those fans. Like, what has that been like, seeing the growth of this sport in this country?
I moved here right before the 1994 World Cup, which was meant to turn football like a pogo stick or a yo-yo into an overnight sensation, sweeping the nation. And it didn't. Instead, the growth has been slow and steady.
It did give us Alexi Lawless.
And despite that, the growth has been slow and steady. And I want to say, by the women in huge part, you know, here you go.
Brought it tonight.
Well,
FIFA, what you doing? Go on.
Roger, so your boyhood club, right? And
I think we should be assuming it's
Blazers is to kind of bring a lot of the joy right over to this country, and it just has grown so much. I mean, look at this stadium, look what we've seen all around the country, and all of the U.S. players who over. As we get underway here, we think of what Heather has done on the women's side to create all of those fans. Like, what has that been like, seeing the growth of this sport?
I moved here right before the 1994 World Cup, which was meant to turn football like a pogo stick or a yo-yo into an overnight sensation, sweeping the nation. And it didn't. Instead, the growth has been slow and steady.
It did give us Alexi Lawless.
And despite that, the growth has been slow and steady. And I want to say, by the women in huge part, you know, here you go.
Brought it tonight.
Well,
FIFA, what you doing? Go on.
Roger, so your boyhood club, right? And
I think we should be assuming it's
Blazers is to kind of bring a lot of the joy right over to this country, and it just has grown so much. I mean, look at this stadium, look what we've seen all around the country, and all of the U.S. players who over. As we get underway here, we think of what Heather has done on the women's side to create all of those fans. Like, what has that been?
in training. That was exactly.
You get it blocked.
Yes.
You recycle. You go to the other
Yes,
side.
this is wheels within wheels. Look at this. You laugh. You didn't understand. We're playing 4D. Well, not really chess. I think it's more 4D.
Oh, it's a low B and sends that one over the crossbar. Lots of young players out there. I don't know who catches your eye. Making that bombing run was Stanley Mills.
Stanley Mills. Did he win a fan contest to play?
I mean, Everton brought about 65 players over here, Roger. Actually, it's 36, but it's a lot.
I'm a little bit upset not to have gotten a nod myself, to be candid.
Is that number 56 he's wearing there? Yep, 56. I actually don't know if I've seen a soccer player wear number 56. This might be the first time.
How does it work when Anthony Gordon becomes number 10 here? That was like the number 10.
You get it blocked.
Yes.
You recycle. You go to the other
side.
side.
Yes, this is wheels within wheels. Look at this. You laugh. You didn't understand. We're playing 4D. Mr. Well, not really chess. I think it's more 4D.
It's a low B and sends that one over the crossbar. Lots of young players out there. I don't know who catches your eye. Making that bombing run was Stanley Mills.
Stanley Mills.
Who on this team do you
Did he
see
win a
yourself
fan
a little bit
contest
in?
to play?
Like, an Everton
I
players.
mean,
If you were
Everton
gonna be
brought
an
about
Everton
65
player
players over here,
in this
Roger.
current
Actually,
day
it's 36,
squad,
but it's a lot.
I'm a little bit upset not to have gotten a nod myself, to be candid. Probably
Is that number
Seamus Coleman.
56 he's wearing there? Yep, 56. I actually don't know if I've seen
Like old Yeller.
a soccer
Somebody
player
should
wear
have
number
put down
56.
all
This
the
might be
time.
the first
How does
time
it work when Anthony
You
Gordon
can't
becomes
know
number 10
yourself
here?
as
Training
a
that was like the number.
You get it blocked.
Yes.
You recycle. You go to the other
Yes,
side.
this is wheels within wheels. Look at this. You laugh. You didn't understand. We're playing 4D. Well, not really chess. I think it's more 4D.
It's a low B and sends that one over the crossbar. Lots of young players out there. I don't know who catches your eye. Making that bombing run was Stanley Mills.
Stanley
Who
Mills.
on this team do you
Did he
see
win a
yourself
fan
little bit
contest
in?
to play?
Like, an Everton
I
player.
mean,
If you were
Everton
gonna be
brought
an
about
Everton
65
player
players over here,
in this
Roger.
current
Actually,
day
it's 36,
squad,
but it's a lot.
I'm a little bit upset not to have gotten a nod myself, to be candid.
Is that number 56 he's wearing there? Yep, 56. I actually don't know if I've seen
Like old Yeller.
a soccer player wear number 56. This might be the first
How does it work when Anthony
You
Gordon
can't
becomes
know
number 10
yourself
here?
as a
Training that was like the number 10.
You get it blocked.
Yes.
You recycle. You go to the other
Yes,
side.
this is wheels within wheels. Look at this. You laugh. You didn't understand. We're playing 4D. Well, not really chess. I think it's more 4D.
It's a low B and sends that one over the crossbar. Lots of young players out there. I don't know who catches your eye. Making that bombing run was Stanley Mills.
Stanley
Who
Mills.
on this team do you
Did he
see
win a
yourself
fan
little bit
contest
in?
to play?
Like, an Everton
I
player.
mean,
If you were
Everton
gonna be
brought
an
about
Everton
65
player
players over here,
in this
Roger.
current
Actually,
day
it's 36,
squad,
but it's a lot.
I'm a little bit upset not to have gotten a nod myself, to be candid.
Is that number 56 he's wearing there? Yep, 56. I actually don't know if I've seen
Like old Yeller.
a soccer player wear number 56. This might be the
How
first
does it work when Anthony
You
Gordon
can't
becomes
know
number 10
yourself
here?
as a
Training that was like the number 10.
You get it blocked.
Yes.
You recycle. You go to the other
Yes,
side.
this is wheels within wheels. Look at this. You laugh. You didn't understand. We're playing 4D. Well, not really chess. I think it's more 4D.
It's a low B and sends that one over the crossbar. Lots of young players out there. I don't know who catches your eye. Making that bombing run was Stanley Mills.
Stanley
Who
Mills.
on this team do you
Did he
see
win a
yourself
fan
little bit
contest
in?
to play?
Like, an Everton player.
I mean,
If you were
Everton
gonna be
brought
an
about
Everton
65
player
players over here,
in this
Roger.
current
Actually,
day
it's 36,
squad,
but that's a lot.
I'm a little bit upset not to have gotten a nod myself, to be candid.
Is that number 56 he's wearing there? Yep, 56. I actually don't know if I've seen
Like old Yeller.
a soccer player wear number 56. This might be the
How
first
does it work when Anthony
You
Gordon
can't
becomes
know
number 10
yourself
here?
as a
Training that was like the number 10.
You get it blocked.
Yes.
You recycle. You go to the other
Yes,
side.
this is wheels within wheels. Look at this. You laugh. You didn't understand. We're playing 4D. Well, not really chess. I think it's more 4D.
Low B and sends that one over the crossbar. Lots of young players out there. I don't know who catches your eye. Making that bombing run was Stanley Mills.
Stanley
Who
Mills.
on this team do you
Did he
see
win a
yourself
fan
little bit
contest
in?
to play?
Like, an Everton player.
I mean,
If you were
Everton
gonna be
brought
an
about
Everton
65
player
players over here,
in this
Roger.
current
Actually,
day
it's
squad,
36, but that's a lot.
I'm a little bit upset not to have gotten a nod myself, to be candid.
Is that number 56 he's wearing there? Yep, 56. I actually don't know if I've seen
Like old yeller.
A soccer player wearing number 56 is my favorite.
How does it work when Anthony Gordon comes number 10 here? Trey
You get blocked.
Yes.
You recycle. You go to the other side.
This is wheels, this is wheels. Look at it. You are. We're playing 4D. Mr. Bullock will check.
Except over the crossbar. Lots of young players out there. I don't know who catches your eye on that. Maybe that bombing run with Stanley Mills.
Stanley Mills.
Who on this team do you
Did he win a song contest to play?
In Everton?
I mean, Everton brought about 65 players over here. Actually, it's 36, but that's a lot.
I'm a little bit upset not to have got the knock myself, to be candid.
That number 56 he's wearing there. Yep, 56. I actually don't know if I've seen a soccer player wearing number 56 is my favorite.
How does it work when Anthony Gordon comes number 10 here? Trey
You get blocked. You recycle. You go to the other side.
This is wheels, this is wheels. Look at it. You are. We're playing 4D. Mr. Bullock will check.
Except over the crossbar.
His squads.
You know, one player for Arsenal now in the game, out playing right back, Hector Bellerin, has been with the club for many years, of course. 3 FA Cups with them, in about 250 games. In fact, did you overlap with Bellerin?
I did. He was there, and it's so good to see him back again in his Arsenal kit. I mean, he was out on loan for a long time. A lot of people wondered if he would play for Arsenal again, and here he is getting a run. And I really like his engine. I think top guy in terms of what he brings to the club, on and off the field. He's always very outspoken about a lot of off-the-field issues that I know a lot of guys kind of steer away from, but Hector Bellerin he's up for making change in a positive way.
No doubt, and there's a look at Bellerin there. 59th minute in Baltimore. A couple guys still on the field. Martinelli still getting a run, so maybe Arteta wants to see a bit more from his winger. And there he is. And he almost got all the way into net and tried to put that on the far bar. Nice run.
It's a great run and a great tackle. Martinetti just drives, is trying to get that on his left foot. Really great sliding and tackle.
Yeah, ultimately, and that's of course the new signing for Everton, James Tarkowski, longtime Burnley player. In fact, 198 appearances for Burnley. Still 29 years young. And that's going to sail just wide the corner for Martinelli.
If you're Martinelli, you either want to get that trigger off quick, or you want to put a little bit of an upper body fake shot into it to just pause the goalkeeper for a second in order to get your shot off. He was trying to just out-muscle him on that one and just not able to get his shot off the way that he wanted, but creating a lot of havoc on that left flank today.
We'll see if Everton can get something going the other way. A couple of young players in. We mentioned the run up the flank that Stanley Mills made before. That's him on the ball for 56. And up front, a familiar striker, Rondon, who's almost able to get Gordon in on goal. Nice play from Arsenal. And there's the foul on Rondon.
Well, that's Rob Holding there being forced to be welcome to the match and get his touch right away, else you'll pay the price if you're a center back.
Take a look at the through ball here from Rondon. Yeah, nice idea.
Good energy from Anthony Coleman there, but going to need a little bit more, Anthony Gordon, going to need a little bit more creativity to beat a quality side like Arsenal with those through balls. Can't be so direct, can't be so predictable. You can't just rely on speed.
So Arsenal had the way of the match early, Heather O'Reilly, and had a couple of goals from their two stars, Saka and the newly acquired Gabriel Jesus. Everton yet to be able to fight back too much, but they have switched almost their entire side over. Arsenal still has some holdovers as Arteta tries to figure out what their lineup is going to be. And one player who will figure in, you see on the ball there, Mohamed El Neni, the Egyptian, 30.
And he had a screamer last game, didn't he, Mike?
Yeah, from 30, 40 yards out. I should say feet out. Yeah, just outside of the 18-yard box. Now, curious for your take on Gordon. We talked about him a little bit with Roger Bennett, but now you got to see him here in person. Still so young, but kind of the eyes of the future for Everton as he gets a lot of the ball, and here he is right now.
Well, he's definitely trying to make his impact on the match. He's putting a lot of effort in to kind of cover a lot of ground. I think you need to just be a little bit more patient and just find some gaps as they open up and try not to have to like run himself into the ground to get on the ball. But I love his enthusiasm and his eagerness to be the one, to be the guy, to say, get the ball to my feet. Like we were saying, the number 10, it's kind of like the Michael Jordan. You want that player to want to be the talisman, to want to pull the strings. And even for a young player, he looks like he's up for that challenge.
No doubt, had a really impressive season. Big goal against Manchester United. That was a critical victory for Everton as they tried to avoid relegation, which is such a scary word, right, for so many teams, and certainly a club like Everton that's been around since 1888.
You see a great play there from James Tarkowski, who is the only signee so far for Everton to come into this summer signing window. But what they have in him is a real experienced signing. He's very good at stepping into the midfield like we just saw a few moments ago. Experience from his time at Burnley. And that's a safe signing. That's what you call a safe signing. You know exactly what you're going to get. It's not going to ruffle too many feathers. But I think that Everton fans are looking for some signings that will maybe spice things up a little bit because last season wasn't quite good enough, and they don't want it to go to the brink again. Yeah,
certainly hurts to lose Richarlison over to Tottenham. Figured in on so many key goals for them last season. It's a proud club and looking for some players to step into those gaps. And ooh, I like that move from Gordon. Little dummy. And here come the Toffees. Iwobi. Wide to Gordon. And ultimately, Arsenal able to fend off the challenge.
Gordon is definitely showing a lot of energy, like we said. I think that you're right, that his way that he creatively let that ball run across his body and use. Sometimes I tell my players, you don't have to do all these fancy tricks on the ball, but you do need to get your defender to bite. And a lot of times you do that with your upper body, you do that with a little stop-start, and that's what we saw from Anthony Gordon.
Well, Heather, you say your players, and of course, as the El Neni is almost going to play Bellerin through, can't quite get in the end of it, and he was offsides anyway. You, of course, after your playing career, are now coaching at the University of North Carolina, and here's that lovely skill from Gordon. And what's it like being an assistant coach who, by the way, can still play? I know you're still match fit, okay? You just had two kids.
I don't know if I would say match fit, Mike, but I appreciate you saying that. I got a good level of fitness under me right now, but I don't know if I can play 90 minutes at the highest level.
Okay.
That's giving me a little bit too much.
Coming off the bench, just
exactly,
give us 40.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I love coaching. I think that I have a lot to offer to this next generation, but don't get me wrong. When we have an odd number or we need somebody to jump in, I'm putting myself right back in that lineup.
No question. Here's Iwobi. You spoke earlier, and we had a chance to speak to some folks at Everton, and Iwobi essentially being the star of camp thus far. And this turn there as Rondon tried to get one on net, but Arsenal has been there. There's the aforementioned Iwobi. Now, another player I want to get your take on, Heather. So we spoke about him a bit in the first half, but Nicolas Pepe from the Ivory Coast. 16 goals for Arsenal and some just very technical prevalence in his game, and a player that should be on the pitch, and yet it's kind of in a fight right now with Saka and with Martinelli. What are your thoughts on how that could evolve this season?
Well, there was a lot of excitement about Pepe. It was the most expensive signing in Arsenal history. So when you throw up that kind of dollar signs for a player, you know, you want production. And Pepe has had a hard time finding his feet in this English league. I think a lot of his goals that were scored in the French league were very transitional, were very direct, or either getting played in behind or off the dribble. But now it's a slower build for Mikel Arteta, and he needs a little bit more patience to combine with his teammates. And Saka's just doing that a little bit better, to be honest. So it'll be really interesting what shakes out for Pepe if he's sent along, if he's happy being a sub and contributing where he can. I just know that his career right now is likely not at a place that he's happy about.
By the way, change in goal for Everton. Billy Krellin now between the pipes, and not that Jordan Pickford needed to show anything. I think we know who's going to be the #1 for Everton, as he is the #1 for England once we get into the oncoming season. And looks like it's just about time for that second half water break. So we can reset a little bit, Heather. 2-0, a lot of subs in, and that has changed the flow of the game, right? It seems to be a little bit less direct, a little bit less organized, as you would expect, as players are likely playing together on the pitch for the first time.
Yeah, the first half definitely had a little bit more fluidity. You could tell that they were more the starting lineup that had some experience playing with each other. And when you have these mass substitutions, Mike, it's really hard to find that chemistry, and everybody's trying so hard to prove their point that the team cohesion from both sides is lacking a little bit. And speaking of Pepe, could it get any worse for the guy? He's trying to, prove why he is a worthy signing for Arsenal at the most expensive price tag ever, and then he just gets one bopped right in the nose, and now he's struggling to find some joy in this match as well.
Yeah, naturally, right? You're watching the Charm City match presented by Frank's Red Hot. We are live in lovely Baltimore. The weather started out a little bit hot, and it has cooled down, certainly. The breeze coming in off of the water. And it's just a pleasure to get the English Premier League, at least from this one person's opinion, the greatest league in world sport, right here stateside. So many fans in this country emerging. There's Mikel Arteta. Happened to play for both of these sides. Earlier in his career, it was with Everton. Eventually went over to Arsenal and captained that team. Maybe the first signs of leadership. Heather, did you find that in your career, that captain just seems to be sort of, it's a natural transition into coaching?
I think you're right. I think it takes a special character to be a captain. You're usually a mature figure off the pitch. On the pitch, you're usually a little bit more cerebral about the game. You don't fall for the shenanigans in the dressing room, maybe as much as a more kind of like light-hearted player that wants absolutely nothing to do with coaching when their playing career is done.
Right.
But he always seemed like he took his football very seriously as a player and now as a manager.
Now, in the early 2000s, would your first captain have been Julie?
Yes,
Foudy?
Julie Foudy.
The great Julie Foudy. As you see, Xhaka is getting arrested. He will be done for the evening.
And speaking of my college coaching career right now, this is what it looks like in college soccer with all these mass substitutions, and we have different substitution rules in international play, and this is what it looks like. 4 or 5 people going on the field, but that's what these preseason scrimmages or exhibition friendlies are for these teams, trying to get players their minutes, get players fit. We talk so much about loading at the professional level, and that's a sports science term for how many minutes on the pitch, how many sprints you're getting in, the distance covered, what speed you're doing it at. All this stuff is tracked now by the GPS devices on these players' backs, and that's a little bit of what this game is for as well. Obviously you want the result, but more than anything you want people coming out healthy, a little bit fitter, and with more ideas than they came in with. All
right, so some of these Arsenal young players that you just alluded to, you see one right there, that's Reece Nelson, 25, Sambi Lakanga, number 23, and then Ravel Walters, English international, number 97. And these are all, I won't say kids, but young men, right? Kids relative to being teenagers often, or at least in early 20s, that are up and trying to impress enough to be considered, maybe not for the 25 that they're going to narrow the roster down, but hey, maybe somebody that gets brought up as the season goes on, as you often see young pieces do with these clubs.
Well, I think this is Frank Lampard essentially saying this game is a little bit out of reach for us in order for getting a result. So what are we going to use it for? We're going to use it for, seeing how these young kids perform under pressure. They have to make some very quick decisions on some of these players in order, do we give them a contract? Do we put them on loan? Do we ship them out? In games like this is where you can see these players.
Yeah, and there's an established striker, though, in Eddie Nketiah, who tried to turn and get a shot on goal there. 14 goals for the England under-21s and a couple of years ago, and that was actually a record. Joined Arsenal at age 16. And Heather, let's take a peek at the foul here. Yeah, pretty clear.
Well, I think Ballerin's an experienced player, and he doesn't like the looks of Anthony Gordon getting around him so easily. So that one was surviving your ego, making sure that young kid isn't smoking you.
Well, Bellerin is out there perhaps to steady the young players a bit. Of course, a longtime Arsenal man who was most recently on loan and now back with the senior squad. We'll see, though. We'll see, right, as the season commences. And that's Walters getting a touch out in the left back. You can catch in the background, Heather's chants here and there, although perhaps fewer than early, right, when you had Jesus out there. But you can still hear from the Arsenal and Everton supporters here in Charm City. And there's Rob Holding. Holding is a player who should figure in. All right, he's only 15 appearances last year.
Yeah, he's a steady veteran. You know what you're going to get with Rob.
And there's a foul. Like Nketiah was going to turn his man.
I think in terms of athleticism and being a physical force, somebody like Gabriel, I think, is going to be a little bit more resilient than Rob Holding, but he's still a very solid squad player for Arsenal.
That was the first action we've seen from Michael Keane, who will certainly figure into Everton's side. Center back, started his career with Man U, eventually went to Burnley and then Everton in 2017. He's played 179 games for them at this point. 31 starts last year. Hold things down. And still at the, I was going to say prime of his career. Heather, maybe you can explain. It's the prime in English football is a bit younger than people might think of, right? If you're watching the NBA or if you're even watching some domestic leagues, they're just so, the fitness level is so insane that you have a lot of kind of between, 21 to 25, 26. And if a player is still playing into the 30s, it tells you something about the fitness level and just how great that player might be.
Well, with so much organization in the academy system, some of these guys have been playing, maybe not called professional because they might not make money, but their lifestyle has been one of a professional since they were 12 or 13 years old. So they've been in the mix. They've been, doing this as their main gig for a long time. And so then I think by the age of 17, 18, they're almost seasoned at that point, Mike.
A lovely touch there from El Neni to try to release a striker. And Freeman able to come out and clear. And you also have to figure with that youth development system and just with the transactional side of the game, Heather, there are probably several 30 to 32-year-olds that are better, right, than the 18, 19-year-old that are trying to become that next person. But that exchange right there is also just so significant in international soccer.
I think when you're buying a young player, you're buying for what they can do now, but you're buying for what they can do in 10 years. And I always say it's nice to have that potential card, right? Because, I just think you have so much room for mistakes because people think, okay, they're a young player, they'll grow from it, they'll learn. When you're an older player, you get a little bit of a shorter leash
because you don't maybe have as much time to mature. You sort of are who you are at that point. So I think those are all big questions that a lot of managers are making right now.
Well, more danger as Nketiah gets in front of the keeper, and Crennan has to come out once again. And he's starting to feel some danger as Arsenal looks for a third. 2 goals for Arsenal came in that first half. You know, one player we haven't had a chance to discuss yet who's playing in the back for Everton and factoring in there is Vitaly Mikolenko, who is from the Ukraine, and you know what a difficult time, right, for him and for all Ukrainians as war continues to happen there. And here he is playing, representing his country. Everton, a lot of the supporters there and some of the staff, Heather told us how impressed they have been with how stalwart he has been and being able to play as Nketiah turns the corner. Here's the clearance, but you can certainly empathize with a player and just a person, the citizen going through that.
Yeah, I think that he showed a lot of strength last season during a very difficult time for his country. He scored a great goal, maybe not the greatest goal of the whole season for the squad, but it was considered the goal of the season, and the staff thought that was a little bit of a sort of hat tip to him and everything that he sort of went through that year. But he's here to make an impact. He's not here for any sympathy claps right now. He wants to make an impact on this team, and coming in as a second half sub, I'm sure that he's hoping that he's on the other side of the starting lineup come the regular season.
Well, it's too bad we don't have Roger Bennett here to clarify for us what he thought the goal of the year was. I Googled this goal. I didn't actually catch it within the Premier League last season. It was an absolute screaming volley against Leicester City, and it was worthy of goal of the year.
So it wasn't the fact that he's Ukrainian, his country's at war. It was actually a gem.
The way that it was explained to us was sort of like, yeah, it was a sympathy vote. And then I saw it, and I was like, no. This was a bomb. He absolutely deserved it. And by the way, yellow cards coming out here, and understandably so, as just trying to keep Nketiah off of the ball has proved difficult for Everton here in the second half.
Just getting a little bit too physical, and you think that you're getting beat. You want to make sure that you're disrupting them as much as possible, and that a little bit it can be seen as a professional foul, but I think more than anything it was just a foul out of frustration. It has been a frustrating last 55 minutes or so for Everton. So
Nketiah has actually dual citizenship. He's able to play for either England or Ghana. And no shot, instead a chipped ball to the far post from El Neni. Thought he might rip one. As you know, he doesn't like to strike the ball from distance. And instead it looked like a bit of a set piece here from Arsenal.
Yeah, another really great delivery on their set pieces. And just very professional from the newcomer to see that ball out.
Just about 10 minutes to go, plus a bit of extra time.
Well, if you're Frank Lampard, you like that your side has the confidence to play out on a goal kick like that, but you don't want to see that sort of stress from your center defender that they can't complete that pass to the wing. Now it's back in their end, feeling the heat again.
You know, Heather, just considering the changes that Arsenal have made, and I'd love to see Everton get something going forward with the Iwobi, right, with Gordon. I mean, these are two regulars, right, that will either start or be two of the first subs off the bench this season. So would love to see, if you're an Everton supporter, Toffee's a little bit of momentum moving forward, because it's mostly been Arsenal's game tonight.
Well, I think to go back to Alex Iwobi's game, I think that's a frustration that a lot of people have for him is he is this fit player and very likable teammate, but when push comes to shove, can he change a game for you? And I think that Everton is missing some game changers in their squad, and they're really relying on it falling on the shoulders of 20-year-old Anthony Gordon.
That's a great way to put it into perspective, and especially thinking of the transfer of Richarlison, who is that caliber, right, of player, and he goes out. And can Everton pull somebody back in? And this is also the trick in the Premier League, right, with the table, is that if you aren't close to Champions League play, the previous year, it's harder to get some of those players to come. Whereas for Arsenal, they're just one spot out, right? And then Gabriel has a nice combination play here on the sideline. Whereas Arsenal, they were able to get Jesus to come.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of a positive signing there, you just saw a great piece of play from Jamie Czerkowski, but you know, he is a defender and he's going to do his job. We saw him spin out of pressure there and keep possession. But if I'm an Everton fan, or Frank Lampard for that matter, I'm thinking I need a little bit more bite up top, a little bit more depth in my squad of players that can change games, that can create, that can force errors from the back line.
Bit of an aggressive tackle there, but nothing too notable. And that was Lewis Warrington.
Just for Roger Bennett's health more than anything else. You know, I don't want Everton getting themselves in the same position as last season. So.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Is that can you use that going into the season, as you alluded to earlier, Heather? Take that first match, right, so seriously and not get off to that slow start as they did last season. But the English Premier League is not very forgiving. You might open up with Man City, and then you get Liverpool the next week, right? And then you see Wolves in the middle of the table. I mean, it is absolutely cutthroat. Only 20 teams. There's Bellerin, been active on the wing. And Hector, 3 FA Cups on his resume. A little bit overeager.
Well, again, we're looking at players who want to make a difference. He's throwing in some upper body fakes like we talked about. He just can't scheme his way around the defender and sort of winds up having to go straight through him. Gets the foul called.
And that was Mikolenko, again, out of Ukraine, the 23-year-old. So he was acquired in January in the transfer window, and Frank Lampard seemed to take a liking to him because he started 12 out of the next 13 appearances for Everton, becoming kind of a staple out there at left back.
Well, that's the thing when you make a coaching change mid-season, Mike, is every player then has like almost this rebirth, this new chance to impress their new boss. From players that have been starting, they need to prove that they should be starting again, and players that haven't been getting as many minutes as they want now have sort of a new chance. And he used that, and coaches have different opinions, different styles, what they prefer. I mean, obviously there's so many different ways to play this beautiful game, and that's why people love it around the world.
Well, Bellerin clearly not going to just let Gordon dribble tonight. That's the 3rd time that he has fouled the young Englishman. Bellerin out of Spain, as is his manager, Mikel Arteta. You starting to get a little excited about the World Cup? Heather, I know it's still a couple months away.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that it will be middle of the season in the Prem, you know, and November. November. I mean, I'm used to, you know, fall, you know, pumpkin spice lattes and, you know, watching American football, and then we're just going to have the World Cup nestled in right when we're sitting down at our Thanksgiving dinner. It's going to be a little bit weird, but I'm looking forward to it. I mean, obviously, you know, the U.S. has a really great opportunity under Greg Berhalter to do some amazing things, and I think the U.S. should be optimistic. And if we don't go as far as we want this World Cup, I think that it'll be a wonderful building block to 2026 when we're at home. I think this young group of guys can do some phenomenal damage at the World Cup.
Yeah, this next generation who have all seemingly, maybe there are a couple of exceptions, but been playing on big European teams. We're talking about Chelsea and Barcelona and Juventus, right? So it's really exciting to see where that's going, and that's of course where you have been there, right on the women's side. You guys have been up there carrying a lot of that water. And can I ask you about, we've seen there have been some developments, right? And we know about the equal pay. What has been your position throughout, and how do you think it's been resolved? Not that it's all resolved now, but how do you think the progression has been?
I think it's been a difficult time for the women's national team. I mean, nobody wants to be, you know, at war with their employer at all, and it's kind of dragged out. But I think it's come to a really promising position with the men and women agreeing to take equal money, and so there'll be a new camaraderie between the teams because every team, you want each other to do well. I think a big holdup still is the FIFA prize money. It's just such a huge discrepancy from the FIFA level that it makes it challenging for U.S. soccer to sort of reconcile that gap. But Cindy Parlow-Cohen has done it as head of U.S. soccer, and all blue skies ahead, and I think it's a new day for U.S. soccer.
Very well said. Well, meanwhile, you see Everton trying to press some, right? Trying to get a goal to make their fans and attendants happy, and Arsenal back on the ball with the counter. Ballerine came up the wing.
Very much a 5-back from Everton here, Mike. You know, it's hard for the wingbacks to kind of get out of the gates, and that must be so frustrating, especially when you're down 2 goals. You want to be able to be freed up and at least create some danger, and instead Everton is being forced to play really conservatively right now.
Yeah, and we mentioned earlier in the game, so Everton didn't see a lot of the football last year. They were 19th in the Premier League in terms of possession. They only had the ball around 38% of the time. That's going to, of course, be in contrast to the teams like Manchester City and Liverpool, and even Arsenal to an extent is a team that's in the upper half of having the ball. Now it's a little easier when you have the depth of talent, as some of those big squads have.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Everton side get some speedy front runners, some players that even if they do play a very transitional game, can at least hold the ball and let their team kind of get out of the blocks.
Yeah, one of those players right there, Nketiah, who again has just been problematic every time he's on the ball. Right, Everton has to account for that player.
Absolutely, and we spoke about it before. I mean, he must be disappointed that Gabriel Jesus is getting all the talk right now, and he wants to make his mark on this game and on this team, and he's done that the last couple of games. Some really fine performances from him.
Nice little advanced work here, and Gordon and Everton trying to get forward. Only a couple minutes left here in Baltimore. Nice touch from Iwobi, and that will be a free kick. Iwobi showing some frustration, and the yellow card given over to Pablo Mari. Pablo Mari, we haven't had a chance to speak too much about tonight, but Spaniard was on loan to Udinese last year. Let's take a look at that foul. So yeah, there's the nice touch in. Yeah, that's a classic yellow there, right? Disrupting a scoring chance.
Yep, and we see some of these players coming off their summer break, so a simple play like that where you would want to just come hard with your mark and then get back in your line. He's a little bit slow in the way that he steps up. And he did have, all these players did have a couple weeks off in the summer, Mike, and you kind of lose a little bit of your sharpness, so they're all kind of gaining that back.
Yeah, let's see if Anthony Gordon wants to have a shot here. We are pretty deep. Okay, he went for it, and it hit the wall. Nice header across from Everton.
I mean, gotta love the confidence of the boy, but that's pretty ambitious for a young kid to take that free kick off some of the veteran players and then not, get it on frame.
Hey, look, Heather, he's the number 10 now. If the older players have an issue, look at the number on my back. Yeah, there's a nice strike. Is Arsenal hungry for a third? And that was Nicolas Pepe, the 26-year-old from the Ivory Coast. And we're into stoppage time, so 3 more minutes, roughly. Do you have any stoppage time favorite stories from your career, Heather?
You know what?
I know there's some from the Olympics or the World Cup.
Oh, nice one. I appreciate the layup there, Mike. Yeah, 123rd minute in Old Trafford. One of the best plays of my career. Abby Wambach gets the ball in the middle. She puts a very heavy pass. A lot of players wouldn't even try to keep it in bounds, but you know what? I just got in the game, so I had no reason.